Hello, welcome to the Swatches live stream. I'm Clint, this is Diana. We are professional illustrators, art instructors, and we have our own art studio. And we're going to be reviewing your submitted portfolios, but we're also going to just be talking about the subjects that those portfolios and submitters pose to us. So we are going to be talking about a variety of art, skills, and industry topics. There will be a couple of paintovers that have already been done, some analysis to learn from that. And we appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to give a couple of minutes here at the beginning just to run through some announcements. And then we will start talking about we're going to probably start with some theory, talking about the industry, and then start taking a look at the portfolios.
Please let us know if you can hear us and see us. We're on a bit of a delay, so we'll just see if everything's okay. Just confirm that everything's okay for us in the chat. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to just move around some stuff here on this screen. That way you can see the chat a little better. We will be keeping an eye on the chat throughout the stream. So if you have any questions, feel free to just put them out there. We will try to get them answered during the stream today. So, a couple of topics for announcements. Number one, we only touch the very tops of all of the subjects during these live streams. Even though they last an hour or two, we're touching just the tip of the iceberg. If you really want to get in depth on any of this stuff, we have full 8-week courses. We've got the career kit out on the website. If you really want to see transformation in your work and in your skills and your understanding of all this stuff, you've got to dive in deeper than what we can do in the live stream. These are great just to build general awareness of a subject, but not necessarily be able to implement meaningful change. There is a sale going on. The sale in this month is on the form drawing course. That's one that I teach. It is fully recorded. You can dive right in. It is an 8-lesson course. You can save $30 on it. It's all about, as you can see right there, thinking and drawing volumetrically. This will help you draw both from observation and from imagination, because as illustrators, a lot of times we don't have one-to-one references. So we have to create imaginative things that have the proper volume and believability and accuracy that you would need from a real-world subject. And then we do have a new art challenge coming out in 10 days.
Yes.
And this is an unofficial Harry Potter
We have
theme.
to make sure everyone understands that this is not officially licensed anything. This is not endorsed by Harry Potter, Wizarding World stuff or Magic the Gathering. It's not. This is purely for fun and educational purposes under fair use. I just have to say that.
Yeah, we will have tickets for sale. There is a limited number. 15 people can enter this. And the tickets will go on sale on our website. We are changing it up a little bit from the previous art challenges in that there will be 3 live streams. Normally there's just 2, but we thought we're going to stretch it out a little bit and do 3, and you'll have 6 weeks, 2 weeks between each live stream.
This is more like a real world situation where you would normally have 6 weeks to do an image like this from a client or a higher tier client. And it's going to be an illustration challenge, so not concept art or character design like in previous challenges. It's going to be fully illustrated image, and the idea is to create a kind of mock Harry Potter themed magic card, right? So it would be an illustration used for a card game.
Yep.
Okay. So that goes on sale March 19th, by the way, in 10 days.
Now the live stream reviews will be open to anyone. If you just want to watch those, that's completely open. Anyone's feel free to log into that. But if you want to participate, you do have to get one of the tickets. The last several times we ran a challenge, the tickets sold out within 24 hours. Oh, if you are keen on doing that, then make sure you check it out on the day.
Yeah, we're going to list them at noon Central Time. We're telling everybody this time because some people were really disappointed last time that they just they checked, later in the
Yeah.
day and all the tickets were gone already. So we're telling you the exact time and date so that if you really, really want one, you can be there and pull the trigger and get a ticket right away.
All right, let's move on. We get comments from people about our feedback and the way that we give feedback and kind of what our priority is when we give feedback. One is we first want to say that we feel a sense of honor anytime anyone does ask us for feedback on their work. And we recognize that it is a very respectful thing to do, and it shows a lot of trust in us as instructors to give meaningful, unbiased feedback that is helpful. We try to take that seriously. We always want to be constructive in what we say. But here's some notes on the way that we think about feedback. First up is the feedback we give is always solicited.
Yes, please don't jump on us in the comments. We've had people, occasionally, it's rare, okay? So I don't want to act like we're victims or anything, but occasionally there's the rare comment on social media, like, how dare you say this stuff about someone's work? And it's like they literally asked us to. So we don't pick people's portfolios to critique or people's work unless they volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Next is our priority is ultimately your long-term success, not necessarily your short-term happiness. I know this is a bit on the nose. You find a pat on the head elsewhere. I'm just saying that, like, if you want just words of encouragement, there are places to get that. There are support for that. There's family, there's friends.
There's also other YouTubers that are like that.
And I recognize it is important. Your emotional well-being and your motivation to continue is important. I don't disregard that. But for us particularly, we are more keen on kind of the professional side or the serious study side of what you need to do to get to that next level. Next up is, it's not kind to obscure the path to success with vagueness. So if you show me an image and say, what do I need to do to improve? And I just tell you like, well, get better at illustration. It's too vague. That's not actionable. And if I see that you are doing the wrong kind of work to get hired to do your goal, then the best thing that I can do is to tell you you're heading down the wrong path to get to that destination. That's the best thing that I can do. So I'm not saying that you're on the wrong path in order to make you feel bad, but to just say there is a better path, that is a faster path, that is going to get you to your goal quicker and easier. Next up, if we see that you're close to your goal, we'll say so. Sometimes we say you're not very close, you need to keep working. Other times we'll say you're almost there, keep pushing. Wherever you are, we'll just say it wherever you are, what is accurate. Some people will say, yeah, we think you're good, you ought to be working in the industry. If we think you're ready, we'll just hire you to our studio.
Or we'll recommend you
Yes.
to clients if we're not able to hire you at the time. But we're very explicit about that. And I just want to point out that this is not like a flex or anything or patting ourselves on the back here, but there's a very clear difference to people, I don't want to name names, but other people that give feedback and have channels or do classes that say, yeah, you're ready to work, but they will not recommend you to anyone. They will not point you to any client in particular, and they won't hire you. So I'm always kind of, I don't want to say suspicious of those people, but you have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes. When someone is not ready or not willing to back up what they're saying to you, always take it with a grain of salt. And we don't do this, honestly, we're quite proud of not doing this, but there are other educators that their main goal is to make the person just have good feelings and not necessarily be successful. That's not their goal. And whereas with us, it is to see our people succeed in tangible goals and not just have good feelings.
Next up is the industry hires those who can do difficult and complex thing in a respective subject and style, and we're always going to push you towards that end. Because we've recognized that if what you can do and what you're showing is easy or simple, or if the vast majority of artists can do that thing, then it is of very low utility to the industry. So whatever it is, whatever style or subject or program, you've got to be able to do the difficult thing. And that's what people pay for. So we push towards that end. And lastly, if you disagree with our assessment, you're welcome to disagree. No problem with that, right? You can disagree, but then test your work against the industry and see if we're right or not. If you think, you know what, I don't think they're right. I think I'm hireable right now. Okay, then go market yourself in the industry and see if you can make a career.
Yeah, ultimately, that's all that matters, right? Ultimately, the market decides. It's not us or anyone. I mean, we decide who we hire, but we don't decide whether or not someone's going to be successful in the industry. The market and the industry are going to decide that. So, you know, if you think, oh man, you people are full of crap, you're wrong. I know what's up. Great, you know, there's a whole world out there to test your theories on, and maybe you are right and maybe we are wrong. I'm totally open to that possibility, but you know, there's only one way to know for sure.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing to take a look at, and then we'll take a look at some artwork, is I just want to put this idea to you that you can kind of get all the artistic progress into one of three categories. Start off on the left is you're a student. And the student, it's all about learning. Okay, this is where you're just building your skills, you're understanding. You're not building a portfolio yet. You're just learning the skills. So where you're learning the fundamentals, including form drawing, shading, color theory, values, perspective, anatomy, and proportions. Advanced fundamentals, you need to know these before you can really do these of any good. Like, you've got to be able to draw a thing right in order to put it into a composition. So that would be design theory, composition, lighting, material rendering, visual narrative. It branches out depending on what subjects you're trying to do there. Then move to the next phase when you can consistently do images that don't have mistakes in those fundamentals.
No major mistakes.
Yeah, no major mistakes. Then you move to portfolio building. In this, you want to set a goal. You want to be very intentional. One of the most common problems that we see is that, one, people don't finish learning this before they start building a portfolio. And if they start building a portfolio, they don't have a clear goal or client that they're actually aiming for.
I don't blame people for this. Like, you know, people just don't know what they don't know. Like, I didn't know, and initially, and you didn't. And sometimes you don't know where you are on this side of the line.
Yeah,
you're not sure where the line is. And so you're just kind of trying your best, right? And that is something that holds people back as they start building the portfolio too soon when they're still on this side of the line, but they're just not quite aware of it yet.
And that can be a blurry line between those. That's where a good portfolio review from a pro or multiples can be good to help isolate that information. And then do some research. This is where one of the biggest things is for this group that we're going to be looking at today is you got to know who your competition is. There are other people who are trying to achieve the same thing. So know who you're competing against, because collectively you are creating the benchmark of what is going to be hireable. And they are, in a very real way, the people you are competing against for the jobs. And there is a limited number of jobs, and there is more artists than there are jobs. So you've got to beat somebody out for that job. So figure out what the portfolios of the artists are and what they looked like before they got hired. What was that hireable portfolio? We're going to be looking at some of those today, okay? Next is, this is a bit of a side thing, but let's just clarify something. A generalist, a proper generalist is somebody who is a generalist inside of a field, not a generalist of multiple fields. So I could say that I am an illustration generalist. I can illustrate any general subject within illustration. It can be peoples or buildings or animals. I'm not picky. I can do all of it. But I'm not a generalist as in I do illustration and concept art and 3D modeling and storyboarding and animation. No, because any one of those is a multi-year pursuit to get professional at, and you need to pick one and become competent in that field.
You usually see that among much older artists who have picked up other skills along the way, over time.
Then start looking for actual work when you have a completed portfolio. 6 to 10 illustrations that are targeted to your goal and clients, and at least 3 of them, if not 5 or more clients that portfolio would aim for.
I want to say just a quick note on that, and I think maybe I've said it before in a stream, but in the old days, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was a lot of this mentality, and I even remember saying this to students in the past, and I've since changed my mind, but it used to be that people would say, just shoot your shot, just apply. Oh, you only have 2 images? Just apply anyway, you have nothing to lose. And actually, that's not a great idea, because getting just rejections is really bad for morale. And if you already know, like, I'm not ready, I don't have the requirements, and you apply anyway, and then you get ghosted or you get a rejection, it's kind of just bad for your confidence and your morale. It's better to not even put yourself through that at that stage if you already know there's a high likelihood of it not working, right? And so you kind of want to minimize how many L's you take, right? Unnecessarily.
Yes.
You don't need to subject yourself to that. It's better sometimes to, just hold off. And you're also wasting time that you could be putting into your skills by applying for jobs that you're not ready for yet, right? So now I say to people, wait until you have the portfolio in proper order before you apply.
And then when you get into your brand, get into your career, think of yourself as a brand, artist as a brand. Every image, every post, every comment, even if it's not art related, is part of you as a brand. So create a good brand image. Nobody's perfect. Everybody is a mix of their personality and their other interests as well as their art. But understand that there is overlap between all of these things, and more so, you have to be thinking about yourself as like being a creator, not just a creator as an illustrator for other things or a concept artist for other projects, but potentially on your own thing as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a typo on hustle. We're missing a
yeah.
T. Anyway, just disregard that.
So, research clients, hunt for jobs, be proactive. This is a big thing that a lot of people, even with solid portfolios, kind of miss, is that they don't do enough of the legwork. Like going out there, like hunting for work. When we were starting our studio, I know Diana did a lot of work, hours of work on a daily basis for months to get the studio off the ground, to make contacts, to secure jobs. And that has to become at least a part-time job of just getting those connections. And it's not enough to just look on ArtStation and be like, well, there's one job, I submitted it for today. No, go find strategies of how to find clients, do some research. Be professional, obviously deliver on time, communicate, have consistent quality, and always keep learning and growing. Just like if you're good enough to start getting some work, don't don't feel safe. Like the industry is always growing and improving, and you need to grow and improve with it in order to stay competitive. Yeah. Again, disagree? You're welcome to. You can have your own opinion. These are our notes, and again, you can always test your work and your artwork and everything against the industry. Maybe we're wrong with our views, but the industry always decides.
Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. Okay, so some people are saying that our feedback is respectful, kind. That's good to hear. Okay, here's a comment that is interesting. You have seemed annoyed by some entries in the past, noticeably perk up when previous students show up. Okay, so on that note, first of all, I'm kind of mortified by that. Did we really do that? Maybe we perk up because we just come across people we know, and it's just
always nice.
A natural reaction to seeing someone that's familiar to you. But I definitely don't mean to come across annoyed with other people that are not our students. So we'll have to be more attentive to that, to the impression that we're giving. Thought about doing some challenges with only them. Art challenges with just students. I mean, we've thought about it, but we haven't really pursued that because that would result in, more planning and more communications with, one-on-one communications. And I have not had the time to devote to that. So we just make them publicly available. It's easier for us to do. It's actually insane that you even feel the need to make such disclaimers. Well, we want to be fair. We want to try to be transparent and fair about where we're coming from, what our approach is, so that people know what they're getting into, where we're coming from, Okay. So, do you think limiting yourself to small genres and niches like horror and dark fantasy can hurt your career?
If you go too limited, yes. If you're talking about just horror, dark fantasy, there is enough work within that realm. But if you said something like, well, I only do circus-themed dark fantasy, that's too niche.
Or maybe just gore.
Yeah, I only do extreme gore. Too niche. There's not enough ongoing projects at any given time to support you. And it really would assume that you got on every project of that kind. But having a theme or a specialty within a genre, nothing wrong with that. In fact, that could be helpful. Like, I do historic-based illustrations, or I do fantasy, or I do horror, dark fantasy. That's valid.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in niche maxing and like putting all your energy into that. But it's like, if you pick a niche, then become an expert in that niche. Like, you have to be amazing, and you have to be a real expert at that topic. Like, put a lot of energy and research into it.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start looking at the pieces here. We got 6 portfolios: Sergio, Diego,
João,
Ellie, Killian, and Emily. We're going to start with Sergio. We'll always start with the comments that they gave us, so we'll read over that and then take a look at their artwork. Main goal is to work as a fantasy illustrator. I don't have experience in the field yet. Not too concerned about which IP or company, as long as I gain some experience. Okay, so he's pretty open as to where exactly he would land. Hoping to apply to the studio, but I feel a bit discouraged when looking at the requirements. Well, the requirements are pretty standard for any kind of on-roster illustrator for companies that work on a AAA level.
Yeah, like any outsourcing studio or in-house, yeah.
So ours isn't particularly strict. So just rise to that over time. You may be able to find other requirements on other places. You would have to look around, but they're pretty standard. Creating additional illustrations with multiple characters and including some clothing design will take some time. That's true, it does take time. Building a competitive portfolio is a time-consuming thing. Took me about 2 years once I decided I wanted to have one. However, I'm confident that I can address those with some reference and study. Wanting to start working as soon as possible. Appreciate, the red flag, green flag list.
Yeah, so that's on the website in case anyone's wondering
Yes.
where that is. That's under resources images, I think, if you want to know what Sergio is referring to.
So it's back here. Okay. So this is Sergio's portfolio. Just starting with the full view of it there. So right off, the theme is pretty consistent. It's mainly fantasy. We've got a little sci-fi influence there from
Warhammer.
Say War Machine. Some portraits. Okay. So my glance at this is that it doesn't feel like it's a completed portfolio yet. The portraits strike me more as just studies rather than proper portfolio portraits. Yeah. The rest of them, what do you see from this? Because we always want to look at what is. Give some more room here. What is visible from the thumbnail view, from this view? Because if you can notice any mistakes or issues at this level, that's a red flag.
Yeah. So you were asking about the flags, right? Where you would land on that scale. And so if a recruiter or an AD was looking at this, like I looked at many hundreds when we were hiring, and when we'd open up the page, we'd look at the first row, second row. That's pretty much it. Like whatever fills the screen, right? And we presumably, we'll assume, or we always assumed that this was the most recent work, that people would post it chronologically, although some people kind of mix it up, and I don't recommend that. So looking at it from just a thumbnail, some good things. It's pretty consistent, like Clint said, in the genre. Can tell what you like to do, what you're interested in doing. It's fantasy stuff. Some of these are quite high fantasy, so it's a little more grounded. The stuff is a little bit more high fantasy. Right off the bat, I like that it's colorful. You seem interested in using color, so that's good. On the red flag side, I can see a couple of things which basically amount to lighting and form issues with some, I'd have to take a closer look, but some anatomy or proportion issues as well. So those are noticeable right off the bat. Why am I saying this? Here, there's some strangeness in the value and rendering. This part of the image, I can't tell what it is. And the skull face is really giving it away, that the forms are not shaded correctly here. We might have some proportion issues here, and also some rendering, lighting issues here. Same thing happening across most of them, right? So these are just portraits. They look kind of different styles as well, which, I mean, it's not wrong, but it's just something that is noticeable. And this looks very photographic compared to these.
Yes.
So that is also a bit strange. And then we get very stylized in here in some of these, right? So that's just what I'm noticing off the bat. It also looks like from at least 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, it looks like you're aiming for splash art. And because they just have that sort of look about them. And as we mentioned in previous streams, when you do that, when you say, here's my splash art, people are immediately going to compare it to other splash art that they're familiar with. And so that's going to be an issue if you don't measure up to what they're mentally comparing you to. So that's just right off the bat.
Yeah. So I recognize that there is some skill here. Sergio, you've put in a good amount of time.
Yes.
Like, nobody gets to this level of being able to draw and design a character without some significant effort. So I actually quite like this lineup. It's very similar to the sort of thing that I would expect to see and want to see in my character illustration class. Presentation wise, there really isn't a reason why this dark gray needs to be so dark. It actually makes viewing the designs here a little difficult.
Harder to see. Yeah.
Yeah, these are nice too. So I don't know that I need a whole page of just color variations. That doesn't really require that much.
Is that the same design?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had done that page, what would have made it better is if you had done some of these other ones in here too, and you had color and design variations rather than just one design with all these colors. But
yeah,
that's just
like 2 versions of each one of those, and then you pick this one.
There's also some nice rendering on this piece. Particularly, I'm noticing the boots. They look quite nice. So I don't know if you had a really good reference for that. I like the dirt and dirt paths and distress, some little details there. That's looking good too.
Okay. So we move into the other things. I definitely see that there begins to be a fall off in some of the quality when we're moving up to scenes. This largely deals with the understanding and implementation of value schemes. The value scheme is how the overall larger patterns of value and areas of value work against each other. So let's pull this one up in Photoshop and I can kind of point out what's going on here. So we just look at this in black and white. I've got some notes here. Okay. I was like, oh man, there's notes all over it. That's awful. Let me talk you through it. So here with the V, this is a place where I note we've got some value issues where this would call a bad value pair. And the value pair is there's a foreground element and a background element, and they're getting to be almost the same value, which really makes it feel like they're on the same plane when they're supposed to be on different planes. So we need to find a way that one of them can be visually lighter or darker from the other one. Now it's more important to have the value separation than color separation. So this is also an issue where the background and the foreground element are running together. It works pretty good here with that little side light. That's sometimes why you want a side light. We're losing it down here where all the background tones and this leg tone are running together. Overall, like this was submitted to us at our studio, I would call out this whole area as having difficulty with clarity. I can't, it takes me a moment to figure out like, oh, that's part of the hips. And this is like a little hip flap thing. And then we don't see any of the thigh. The thigh is completely hid behind there. And this is like in the foreground. So for me, that would be needing to be reworked for clarity's sake.
And that's an easy thing to do when you're putting an image together. And it's something you have to think about when you're posing. So at the posing stage, you have to think about, is this going to read clearly? Or are people going to understand what the pose is doing? And then based on that, you choose the position. Okay, where am I going to put the knee? Where am I going to make the leg bend in relation to the camera so that I can avoid any confusion?
Next, this is another problematic area with values where you have a glowing chest in a glowing effect inside of a white object. So now you're trying to put light on the ribs, but you're also trying to put light between the ribs, and it's just a confusing thing to try to visually sell. Other things that would be of note of like needing attention is the guys, okay? I just have an eye here for information, meaning that as I look at this, I don't have enough context in the image. I'm not talking about reading a description off to the side. I'm talking about in the image. Basically, I just have 2 floating heads. I don't know, are these soldiers? Are they guards? Are they peasants? Why are they there? They're not armored. They don't seem like they're having weapons to attack him. They're not fighting back. They're just 2 heads. So that would need attention. The next would be just the overall design of this guy. He's got kind of punk, hard, punk rock sort of spikes coming out of his head with like glows in his mouth, and spikes on the shoulder. But it just feels like right now the design is disjointed. There's not a cohesive idea to this guy, and he just has a massive round shield on his chest. It just feels like it's a little clunky. Ultimately, what I'm seeing is that these are telltales that you're rushing through the steps of doing a complex illustration, and you're skipping through them too quickly. Spend a lot more time in the first half, which is designing the characters, working on the composition, defining the values, and you do all of that before you start your painting. Then you start painting. I have, my guess would be that you spend significantly more time in the painting phase than the planning phase. So we've got to be able to answer all of these issues before you start the painting, because now it becomes more problematic to try to solve. I did a quick pass just to kind of indicate what a solution direction would look like. This is not this is not where you would need to stop. You would have to go further. This is like 20% into what the solution would be. But we're going, okay, well, we're going to just let that get darker as it goes back, kind of silhouetted. We'll catch some edge pop with highlights on there. That way it stands out from the background. Maybe this guy can be darker in the foreground so that he stands out against a medium tone. If we're going to have the side light with this little orange, then lean into it. Actually use it to help tell some of the form information. Let it go further into the forms. Let it define the sides of some of these pillars back here. Let it do more work if it's going to be there, or just get rid of it. Then it's making decisions like one option would be to shade down the ribs so that they're darker, they're in the shadow of the body. You know, if you want to put a little edge light over here and kind of keep it consistent with some of the other stuff, that's fine, but letting most of it be darker so that you can get the glow from the inside. Now that would also need to be carried throughout the head and the chest and the hand. We're getting kind of a visual read problem of like the dark magic over the dark glove. Visually, it's just kind of hard to tell what's going on there. All of these problems just add together to bring the quality lower than it could be for this scene. And no one of the solutions is sufficient to drastically improve the scene. It's all of these changes on each level. 10% more from the character design, 10% more from the value, 10% more from the pose, and all those 10%
10% more from narrative. 10%, yeah. So it's all those things, and a common thing for anyone to do is to just jump to render. Mm-hmm. Just I got to get it done, right? I'm in a rush. But we leave a lot on the table when we do that.
Okay, so that was just a walkthrough. I'm trying to give you an idea of what the direction looks like, what implementation of that looks like. Same thing here. I'm just looking at this as if this was mine and I needed to take this further and do more with it, what would I do? Some of the things I'd be looking at is, can I push the design? So here is, I make the headpiece bigger, give him bigger presence. If we have a star-filled pattern, make the stars bigger, more colorful so that we can read that. Instead of just a simple curve, I'd maybe let the middle 2 section be a unique piece that comes out and it breaks the silhouette up. And that way we don't just have one big, kind of unbroken chest piece, and make the gem bigger. And then instead of just metal against skin, which, I don't know, it feels kind of weird, maybe he's got some sashes underneath. He's got like a little cloth against him first, and then he has the metal against that. And then just for sheer presence and for filling the frame, giving him like a cape or cloak that goes out from behind him. And right now there's no tie between him and the magic, so maybe some sort of magic effect going off of the hands, giving the idea that he's the one generating the magic effect. Again, fill the frame with the content. We've got buildings designed back there. Well, go ahead and fill the frame with them. You've done all this work and you're only getting a portion of what they can bring to the image by making them smaller. On this one, just letting it run right off the image over there. No problem with that. So again, it's getting each element and trying to push a little more out of it. Okay. Yeah. As we've said before, we don't suggest starting with splash art because it's a very difficult thing to do, and there also is just, they don't hire juniors to do it. So it's like you're marketing for a position that doesn't really exist, which is hiring a junior to a splash position. I would suggest toning down from that to do something like this is actually more in the right realm of just a character standing there with a background. In this realm as well, we run into similar issues over here with values. A lot of the value of the character is in the same range. It's all within this kind of 10% range of the lightest to the darkest. We've got to have separation out from like the fist to the body and the body to the arm, and there's just various issues that are kind of pushing all of this together to be kind of flat feeling. And be careful of the effects, namely, and this is just a bit of a pet peeve for me, is when you have a light source such as a flame and you want it darker, you're lowering the darkness or lowering the opacity of the layer. But in order to do that with a light source such as flame, you've got to change the color. Like you're just getting yellow and you're making yellow darker, which just makes it green. Now you have green yellow in your flame instead of shifting all the flame into a deeper red, which is what you get when flame is less bright. So be careful how you're doing that. It still has to fit the right value and saturation level for that light source. Okay, we're running over a lot of things. I'm pointing out a lot of errors, but I think you do have a lot of skill. You're just scaling up the complexity of the image faster than you're scaling your skills to do that complexity of image. You're going to get more traction and improve faster by pulling the complexity down a little bit and making sure that you're really selling the subject. I would say even go as far back as this, right? This is 5 months ago, so this is still pretty accurate to your current level. And this has another tier that you need to reach with the portrait. I would say across multiple of your portraits, you have kind of a monotone skin tone. It's just all the same. There's no skin tone variation for the ears, the nose, around the eyes. Got a little bit for the lips. That's good. We're getting no texture in the hair. Right. So go look at some really good portraits and see what they're doing to add the nuance to it to make it feel lifelike and volumetric.
Agreed.
Okay, the next one we're going to be taking a look at is Diego. Diego says...
If any of the artists are here, by the way, watching the stream, let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, or if you have any comments or questions about anything we're saying.
The goal is to illustrate for Wizards of the Coast, do book covers. I don't know if it means with Wizards or just in general. These are really broad, but they are what I've been working on. I love doing this stuff. Let's see. Oh, I just meant to say, like with Sergio, I know that you're wanting to work as soon as possible. And I think that is going to be more doable if you scale down the complexity of some of your scenes. Because essentially, the higher you go with like splash art or multi-figure action scenes, you're basically putting yourself against more seniors.
Well, okay. I'm not exaggerating when I say that anyone that submits a portfolio here and says, I want to work for Wizards of the Coast, you're literally, what you're saying is that you want to compete with us and our entire team for the same assignments, right? For the same briefs. And that's what it amounts to. I mean, and I'm not saying, oh, you have to compete with us. It's hard. No, we have to compete constantly too. Like we can't just sit back and it doesn't get handed to us. Like we still have to fight for every assignment that we get. So, just be aware that when you say I want to do magic cards, they're not giving those out like candy. Like even to people who've been doing them a long time, it's still hard to get them. Okay, so just be aware that you have to keep this in mind and push yourself to try and hit the level of your competitors, is what I'm getting at.
Yep. So Diego wants to do work on book covers, MTG. Problem is, one of them is that I would like to see which things I should improve, if there are any elements that are lacking, especially in terms of techniques. Next up is to illustrations a little more complex or adding more characters and attention to detail. Okay. So this is Diego's page. And again, I'm getting a pretty accurate read of interest of fantasy realm.
A little surrealism.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's fine. But I am getting a distractingly large amount of just dark gray-brown, which can be okay in some scenes, but you're limiting yourself unnecessarily to the clients and the projects that you can do that particular value and color scheme fits for. And if you offered a broader and you showed like a broader range of control over colors and lighting, then you would make yourself more competitive in the industry.
I like what you're doing. I don't know. There's some quality about your work that is more unique to me. I like some of the things that you're doing that are not so literal. Like, okay, for instance, this image. I don't know what this is about. Okay, I've never read any Brandon Sanderson stuff, so I have no clue what the story is. But this is just a cool thing to me. Like, I like what you're doing. It's kind of unusual. I kind of like this disjointedness of the pose, and that you have very clear color value groupings in this, and it's kind of flat in some areas like here, and it's kind of volumetric. Like, I just think, I don't know how to describe it, but I like what you're doing. There's something about it that I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I would agree that our view is, and we took a look at all of this earlier, is that Diego...
Like, I like this. I don't know where that piece is, but that little thumbnail looks cool.
I don't know that, like, standard MTG style is what you should be aimed at. I feel like there is another direction that may fit you a little better. Is it down with this one? I don't know. I don't know which one it's with. That if you lean into sort of the the semi-flat kind of 2.5D rendering like what I'm getting from this, I can see that working on book covers. But there are some things that you do have to improve on. Like right now, I don't think the faces are there yet.
Yeah, that's what's kind of catching me is, like I said, I like your style. I think I like your style. I like your kind of this look that you have that is very different from other people. I think your limited palette works really well here with this piece. This, I think, is one of your stronger pieces. One thing that's catching me, I don't know how you feel about this, is I feel in some of your pieces that the composition, the framing is a bit off. Like I feel like this is, I want to see more of this. I don't know why it's cut off right here. I guess it feels odd that he's not centered, because you're centering this over here with this dragon and this rock, but then this is kind of off. Everything's off to this side, and there's really not much of interest going on here. So I just find that odd. I feel like it could have been wider and longer with more of the image in frame, and it would have looked better. And another thing that's kind of catching me about your work is on some of this stuff, I'm not sure, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I'm not sure if what's a deliberate choice and what's a mistake with some of it, because this hand and this hand here are almost photographic, like very accurate. But then this shoulder, this arm does not look realistic at all. The proportion seems very strange, and this connection here seems very strange. So I don't know if that was on purpose or what, but it looks like a mistake. And we kind of see that in other pieces as well. For instance, in this one, we were just looking at it, like this doesn't look realistic, like form wise and connection wise, and it looks like a mistake. I don't think you did that on purpose. So if you're asking where could you improve, I would say probably on some of the anatomical stuff, there's some areas where it just looks odd, and I don't think that's on purpose. Like this face, it's not as realistic as, like, compare the quality of this face to this one. Yeah. Right? It's very strange. So anyway, that's what's catching me. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And if I were you, I would be looking at kind of book cover style that has a more graphical lean to it. They use more shape, sort of design to it, where it's not trying to be three-dimensional. It'd be nice if you have the ability to do that, accurately, so that stylize it without breaking it. And then using these sort of muted tones, you can build a portfolio around that, but you have to have really good shapes, really good composition. You still have to have good faces, good poses. You have to over-rely on these other aspects, because you're not going to be really doing it with form rendering and color, since you've got a kind of theme that you have for the rest of it.
If you're not familiar, I would say, like, what this reminds me a lot of is Wiley Beckert's work and Tobias Schwan's work. It's almost like a blend of the two in my mind.
Yeah. So again, you can see the muted sort of natural tones that they use.
She's using even more muted tones now. This is actually more colorful than the work she's doing now. It's not on here. But you can get kind of a sense of it.
Yeah, but you can see how graphical it is. Really uses shapes and simple value separation, getting past those. Yeah, even just the basic drawing there, very nice. Very strong. The anatomy, the pose is still strong. It's not trying to be realistic, but it's a beautiful drawing. Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah, and yeah, I like Tobias Schwan also. A little bit more, I don't want to say experimental or surreal, but it brought to mind this type of work. This is older work of his, but it's kind of not literal, right?
Mhm.
Like it's not a realistic scene. It's not trying to be like a photograph or cinematic or anything like that. There's a lot of flat shapes. There's a lot of kind of graphical shapes, but the anatomy feels very grounded.
Mhm.
It feels very correct. This all feels very correct, right? The tree is in the middle of the ocean or something, but the tree feels correct. Every element feels correct, right? So that's weird. Um, but you see what I'm saying? That it can be flat to camera. It can have no broader context. And this may be something you want to explore, this kind of approach. I don't know what else he's done lately, but looks
Does
like
he need to?
it's still a bit in that realm of surreal, experimental. And again, you can do that, but that means other aspects are going to have to carry it, are going to have to be strong because you don't have the environment, the context, and the realism to rely on. So maybe take a look at that, right? I wish I could get closer here, but I can't get closer.
Just click.
Click.
Just click on it.
Oh, okay. No, that's it.
That's close enough.
Right. And so you got this kind of like what's going on here, this person climbing down a building. Maybe the anatomy is spot on though, and these shapes are spot on. So anyway, this is an example of doing what you're doing, but plussing it a little bit in terms of your forms and anatomy.
Yep. Okay, hopefully something in there is helpful to you.
But I like what you're doing.
Yeah, I hope you find the right niche to go in there because I do feel like there is one for you.
I feel like you could still do magic. I mean,
yeah,
if you address those things, because like even Seb McKinnon did magic. I don't know if he's still doing them, but he does not have a literal style. It's a more surrealism style.
Now, let me just show you this real quick, which is you're putting a lot of work into your pieces. This is obvious, but you're not getting the most you can out of it just due to the value range. Like, there's a lot of effort, and there's some good things about this character design, but it's so dark. Like, if I look at the values, it's so dark. Most of this image is between 90 and 95, which is the background. Then all of the character sits past, it's like 60 to 90% dark. If we just brighten it, only do a value change, we get this. All of a sudden, like this, I would skim past. I wouldn't even look at it. It's so dark, and I'd have to have my screen way up in brightness to even see it. Now I can at least appreciate it, and I can see some of the nice colors. And then the next thing is potentially just trying to tone down some of the blacks, which is interfering with the read. So this is just using a normal layer at about 50%, glazing back over various areas, such as grabbing the color of the ribbon and then painting over the ribbon in the shadow. Why? Because the ribbon in the shadow is the same value as the background, and I'm visually losing where it goes. So I can do that, doing the same thing with the shirt, some of the other ribbons. And now I have a nice, clear character design that I can actually appreciate and look at.
I'm not sure what proportions you were going for here. It's almost got like dwarf proportions. So I don't know if that was on purpose. If you were going for more normal human proportions, you'd have to make some adjustments in height and width. And I would say that the design is very cool. I like everything you have here. I just think if the proportions were just tweaked, it would be a lot stronger.
Yep.
So a comment says, Wiley has done several for MTG as well. Yes, she has. Yeah, they're willing to make more allowances for style if you've won a bunch of awards and are really famous or have a huge following or something. Then you can do whatever style you want.
Also be careful. This goes to Diego. Anyone else that is in a similar range of art is how things look on screen versus how things look in print. So, for instance, like this is going to print really dark and really dim. Then all this part is going to print almost overblown bright. So that's why you see a lot of the illustrations more in the midtones even like Wiley stuff, most of it's in the midtones. It's not really that dark because paper and ink just don't have the same amount of contrast as you can get on a digital screen.
Yeah, it will flatten out a lot of the dark values. And I would say print some of your own stuff out just to kind of see how it prints, and then check back on the computer and make adjustments until you get a better print result, and then you can actually see, okay,
Yes.
this is the optimal value range, right?
Very true. Unfortunately, I had several early MTG pieces that printed very flat before I learned that, and it was just kind of disheartening because I put a lot of effort into them, and just because I didn't balance the values right at the end, yeah, they were kind of duds.
Yeah, I made that mistake too on a lot of work I made in my early days for Comic-Con, and I just had 100 prints made, and then they come and they're all really dark and flat, and that was terrible.
Yeah. Okay, and you said this is pronounced
Schwan, I
João.
believe. If it's a Portuguese speaker, then yeah.
Okay. So it says I'm working on building a strong portfolio for card games. Initially, I'd just focused on Hearthstone, but I've since expanded to create more realistic fantasy-inspired artwork. I'm having a tough time reaching out to art directors and companies. Don't know exactly who I should talk to or how to approach. I'd love some feedback. To anyone that's interested, there is usually a careers page on companies' websites, and that's usually where you submit art portfolios to. If you're not on our email list, I would say just go to Swatches Academy, go down to the footer and join the email list. We don't blast you with a bunch of emails, but we do send out a monthly newsletter, and we do have a list of different industry jobs open. We collect those as we find them throughout the month, and we put them out there. I'm going to guess something here about the work. Okay, I don't know 100% that I'm correct with this. I'm going to guess that you wanted to do Hearthstone, and that was your first choice or similar project, right? And you weren't getting hired to do it, and you thought, well, I see these other people getting hired doing more realistic stuff. And then you started going, well, I'm going to do that instead. That must be easier or more approachable or more work to do that. And what I want you to know, and I want everybody to know, is that at industry level, it's all difficult. Okay? To do Hearthstone style, this sort of stylized look at a high level is comparable to doing the semi-realism at a high level. Okay, they're both difficult. The best thing to do is stick with one. All right, it's very much a grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah, a lot of people think if I split my time, I'm increasing my chances. Yeah. And actually, it's the other way around. You're decreasing your chances because you're spreading yourself around and you're not really doubling down on that one thing, becoming an expert at it. So I don't know, like, we can't talk to you because you're not here, I don't think, but first thing you have to decide is, what do you really want to do? Like, what do you really enjoy doing? I don't know. Maybe you enjoy doing this stuff more, this realism stuff. Maybe you enjoy doing stylized stuff more. I don't know what your heart is really in. It looks like you're more interested in Hearthstone just because there's more pieces, but maybe not. Maybe you switched now and you like this style better. Whatever the case, to achieve success in that area, you need to stay in that area until you get success. You can't just give up and leave. Because if you do that, you'll just keep losing time and you won't make progress. So I would say first thing to do is decide, do I want to be here or do I want to be here? And then spend all your time in that area.
So I'm seeing issues. We're talking about the green flags, red flags. First green flag is I can get to your portfolio. I can see your work. I don't have to sign in to something.
That's good.
Okay. The next is can I identify any fundamental mistakes from a thumbnail view? And I am catching some. They're not big like anatomy mistakes. Aragorn seems to have the right general proportions, right? Soren over here looks okay. But it's more to deal with the lighting, the values, and setting up believable lighting here. And I'm not feeling that. These are not quite there for Hearthstone. We're going to compare this against some other Hearthstone art. And really, this is what anyone can and should be doing when they're trying to improve their portfolio is compare it against the people who are getting hired. What do their stuff look like? And let's analyze the differences. Okay. I like Aragorn. Aragorn's a great character, played very well by Viggo. Movies were great. But if we're going to do this, like everybody knows what Viggo looks like, and you need to kill it. Right now, it feels unfinished. It just doesn't feel like it's quite there with him. And if we're going to try to sell it as like this realistic version of him, then you got to go all the way. You got to really nail that likeness. You got to nail that texture. Okay, same thing. My guess is that you actually want to do more of this. That's where you started. That's what you have more of. So let's take a look at some other pieces in comparison. You've got this guy over here, Gul'dan. He's the wizard or whatever. And you've got Gul'dan here. One of the things that we want to do is look at yours and then compare it to similar pieces. Obviously, there's no one-to-one, but when you're comparing, go down a list and try to be as specific as possible with the questions and answers. What are they doing different with the poses? What are they doing different with the character design, the material rendering, the values, the lighting, the edges, the colors, all of these things. And then what am I doing? What are they doing? What am I doing? What are they doing? And if you can implement all of the differences, you're going to be way closer to matching that same quality. So you're looking at it. I've kind of looked at it some earlier, but what are you seeing, like if you're him, or what are you wanting to pay attention to?
Okay, well, one of the major things is the amount of saturated colors versus desaturated colors. So Hearthstone is really colorful. We all know this, but actually not the entire image is super, super colorful. Like you can see in here, at least 50% of this image is desaturated. And same thing here, maybe not 50%, maybe slightly less, like maybe 40. But we have some areas to contrast against the areas of really loud color, right? So that's one thing that these are doing different. Another thing is use of atmospherics, right? And we talk about this a lot in our illustration class. Even for realism, there's a use of atmospherics to separate the planes from each other, right? So you'll note that here, separating him from the background, separating him from the foreground and a little bit from the background, and get that plane separation. That's totally absent here from yours, right? So both of those things would help this one get closer to these. And then I think the third thing would be color variation within areas, right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's pull in and actually see that. So we're looking at your Gul'dan. There's really just kind of one green, this really bright green here, and then you just shade it down to get to the darker. There's no variations within it. It's all just neon green. Whereas if we look at this guy, he's also green, but look at the variations. We've got basically cool blue, white. We've got some like the kind of
skylight,
almost skylight to the violet side over here as it's influenced by that light. We've got yellow here. We've got darker, truer yellow. We've got the bluish on the top. So depending on which plane is facing which way, it gets influenced by other light sources and other objects. so that you have a full variation of colors within that color, which keeps it from feeling too flat. Even over here, look at all the different colors of green that we're getting in there. That's really lovely. She mentioned the atmospherics. Notice how much lighter in value range all that background is, right? It really helps separate the character out. Here we're getting the same value basically for all the background and the foreground, all the same. There's no distance, there's no atmosphere. Another thing that you'll note, look across a lot of Hearthstone images. Obviously nothing's 100% with every image, but it's often the case that there is a spotlight. There's a spotlight on the upper body in the bust area. And then it gets shadowed as it goes away. So all of this is more shadowed and this is brighter. Basically the same thing over here. This is brighter. Look, that hand is more shadowed. It's dimmer. This gets dimmer as it goes away. So it's spotlighted right there. Here we've got flat lighting. There's just as much lighting on every area, which means that we don't have a focal point. Everything has the same amount of saturation, same values.
Same amount of importance.
Yes. And sometimes you don't want the brightness to get to all areas. And that could be a reason that you want a darker edge. Like this dark edge really works well against all these brighter tones back here. We're intentionally letting some of this area get darker because it contrasts well. Like this is an area you could actually let that edge get darker because you have a bright background. Mm-hmm. And these could probably basically work in silhouette. They could all be dark. There's no reason we really need light. Maybe you have light just on this area of these, and then it just gets shadowed as it goes off towards the ends. This sort of change we could within several minutes really change the dynamics of this image and make it feel much more Hearthstone-like. The same sort of thing we can take a look at for this one. So here, there are some things that you're doing on the right track, which is you're simplifying a lot of the detail. We're not getting a lot of this extraneous textury stuff, right? We're keeping that played down quite a bit. You're trying to pop big forms. You're trying to have form development on this. Okay, cool. But again, we're getting a lot of value issue, and we're also just not really feeling like the characters in the environment. So we look at an image over here. One of the things that you can see is the skylight. Notice the blue light here in the shadow that's influenced from the sky coming down. This helps make it feel volumetric, just like as a sphere, that I can see which plane is where. It changes, from yellow to core shadow to blue as it rounds over. And again, what are we getting? Spotlight on the upper body. It's right here. You see that fall off right there, the shadow, fall off, and then we have shadow for all of this. Here again, we're getting flat lighting, where Hearthstone would say you get main light right there, and this is all going to shadow. And then this background is actually pretty similar to what you have over here.
Yeah, a little bit of atmospherics would go a long way back there. Mm-hmm.
For the atmospherics, a simple way that you can mock it in, I'm not saying that it's going to be immediately done if you do this, but using a lighten layer, just set lighten, lower the opacity, start at about half. You can modify it later if you want, and maybe we'll grab something in that range. Now, the lighten layer at partial opacity will behave very similar to a real world atmosphere. Some of the information will come through visually, but it's mainly the darker elements that get modified so the dark level isn't as dark as it would normally be. And you can change, you know, how saturated it is. You can make it lighter, you can make it darker, and you can change the opacity of it, right? So you'd probably want to make this one a gradient since you can see the ground coming at us. And then the other way would be to add some sort of multiply, and you're trying to get this stuff kind of shadowed. Honestly, this can kind of start getting shadowed as it goes down. This is just a really fast one. Maybe I want it to stay a little warmer.
Yeah, I'll still go to green.
Yeah. There. And then potentially doing the same thing with the sky. We're getting a really, really saturated kind of sky back there. I think we could grab a sky that's closer to one of these that has a little more desaturation, a little more brighter value to it. And just keeps us away from being like 100% saturated in that kind of cerulean color.
And you could even use that for these clouds, right? I mean, they could all be in that tone.
Grab something like this. And that slight grayness, warmness to that balances really well against all the other blue. Keeps it out of just the bright kind of green-blue range. So there, that would be like a really fast pass that would allow you to implement the issues that you see on the other two. And if we were taking this further, it would then be doing the same thing that you see over here, which maybe I grab a little of the blue up here. And then if we had a shadow, like we don't actually have a shadow side. So in this case, I'd probably just choose to make maybe this side more shadowed so that I have somewhere that I can come and add that little skylight to. But right now I don't really have any value to put that against. And we would have to just make that consistent across the character of this is kind of a shadow side, right? So that's the direction you would have to go with these, which shows me that there's a lot of the base of the illustration already there, which is why I think you're probably closer to getting further faster with this than necessarily making an entirely new set of images and learning the realism direction.
Yeah, so just applying that sort of approach, getting comparable pieces and just seeing what are they doing differently with their values, with their lights, how can I implement that on mine, that can do a lot for you.
For you, it really just comes down to being more intentional about where you're putting lights and shadows. Something that they do a lot in Hearthstone is make use of silhouettes. It's not necessarily making something black, but it's treating it as being an all shadow in order for just the silhouette of it to show up more than having full flat light on everything. That's one of the things that's taken away from yours, is that everything has an even flat light on it, which doesn't give you the dynamic lighting that you would have normally in Hearthstone. Okay, let's keep moving.
I hope that was helpful, Schwan. Like, you have lots of good skills. It just needs to, that extra push. So hopefully we'll see your work again sometime. Hopefully on Hearthstone, right?
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Ellie is up next, and Ellie doesn't have a lot of comments. So the main goal and direction is concept illustration for animation games and viz dev for, I assume, theme parks. Missing an either. Lack of coherent style and troubles rendering in realistic style is the problems that they are getting.
Okay, so coherent style and rendering. Oh, look, Abraham is in the chat.
Abraham works with us. We know him. Good to have you, man. So let's start over here with this. Okay, right off we're leading with concept art and illustration. Now, I'm unsure which direction you want to go. You have illustration and production design. So our quick feedback, top note would be you got to pick a direction.
There's a lot of stuff here.
Yes.
And we already looked through it earlier. We're going to look through it again. But again, like we've said to previous people, I don't think you're helping yourself achieve your goals by virtue of just having too many goals, kind of aiming in too many directions.
I think you're going to have difficulty securing clients because you've divided your study time in so many directions, and that there are many other people who have devoted all of their study time to each one of these directions individually, and that's going to be really tough to compete against those people who have done that. And the faster that you can focus on one direction, the faster you're going to make progress in that thing. So let's just, I don't think we can go through all of this, but let's look through some of it. We've got concept art here. Indie short film development. So I'm not sure what you're wanting to do this for. If this is like you're trying to do game concept art or film, it would be nice to see more.
Or have some more context.
Yeah. The style is very animation based. I don't have a lot to say. I just don't have enough to go off of. I feel like it's too complex for hand animation. There's too many little things. Generally for hand animation, you've got to find ways to express like age and indicate age with fewer lines and doing simpler, bolder shapes with such things as the hair. I'm not an animator, but I know enough about it to say that.
It's hard. Okay, I just want to say too, it's hard for us to give you specifically feedback on this because again, we're not really sure who you're aiming for. If you're aiming for TV shows or which kind of games, if for games. So we have like a level 5 cavern. I'm guessing this is a game level.
For these concepts, my initial reaction is that they feel like early versions that have been finished up. That means that they don't feel like they've been designed far enough and had enough iterations before you committed to doing the final version of them. They're still a bit confusing to understand what's happening here and like what area connects with what.
I do agree with your comment, Ellie, on the rendering. So the rendering is a major source of some of the confusion, where it's hard to know what is higher or lower here since the values and the planes are all kind of using the same values. It's a little bit clearer here, but it gets really confusing around here, in here, back there. Does that connect through there, or is this just a solid wall? Does this go anywhere? It's hard to understand
really
this.
Three-dimensionally what's happening in some of these areas.
Just on a design level, it's also a bit strange and it kind of lends itself to the confusion that you have kind of a focal point here, right? Some kind of altar, you get this stone, and then there's a broken bridge over top, which is it's an unusual thing to understand because normally people wouldn't build a bridge or a walkway right over an important landmark like this, or an important feature in the architecture, the focal point. You wouldn't cover that with a bridge, but you have a broken bridge here, which just adds to, it obscures this area that you designed deliberately. So it's things like that that are a bit odd. Okay. In general, when we're looking at the whole portfolio, so you've got concept art, and we're going to look at your theme park stuff because I'm always interested in that. I love theme parks. And then you've got personal work, which has a lot of other things. So you've got character, just OCs, right? You've got full illustrations and, your sketchbook. That's cool. Got a bunch of sort of cartoony dragons and miscellaneous stuff that it's hard for me to tell exactly what you want to do for a living. And some of these things are stronger than others. So yeah, I'm unclear. If you want to do concept art, it would be nice to know which games are you applying for, like which studios. Right off the bat, looking at your work, I'm not sure what product or type of product this style would fit into, right? And you've got a lot of work here, a lot of development. I do think it's kind of a style thing. I agree with your comment. I think the renders are hurting you, to be honest.
Yeah, when you're trying to go for this sort of realistic lighting, volumetric thing, it's just not working with that drawing style very well.
I think some of your drawings would really they look nicer as lines and flats than with the shading, to be frank with you. Let's look at the theme parks. Okay, so I've seen theme park portfolios, and people talk about wanting to do theme parks. And so I don't know how serious you are about this, Ellie. I think some of this work is cool and interesting, and you're on the right track. But just for anyone who's interested in theme parks or production design, or designing show sets and stage sets and this, okay, especially for theme parks and water parks, those are multi-million, if not billion-dollar projects. So when you're applying for a job, there are a lot of very serious people applying to work on a project like that. Like that is a high-end project, and there aren't that many theme parks that get constructed, and there aren't many amusement parks that get constructed over the years, and so there's a lot of competition, and people who want to work on that stuff take it very seriously. I think you could do it. You need to commit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Some of these are kind of indistinguishable from game concept art, which is fine, but it doesn't really look like a realistic place.
Yeah, for this, we've got to really make it more grounded, because this is something that people have to physically make in the real world.
Yeah.
Unlike a game you can use crazy proportions more easily, and you can make things chunkier and stuff. But we've got to ground this in a bit more realism.
Like, this is hard for me to understand how this would be created in real life. So I would need to see a more realistic rendition of this. And you'll note, if you look at some theme park portfolios, that, and I'm not saying 3D is the answer to everything, but 3D is used so that you can get a realistic sense of what it's like to be there. That's kind of what's missing from your portfolio. The treatment is still very cartoony. And I don't really get a sense of this ever being a real place, or what it would be like to actually go there, how this tent would be built, where the facilities would be. Is this like a food truck sort of thing? Okay, what are the dimensions of this exactly? And where would this factor in the park? So we would need to see, a lot of development of these areas that you mapped out. Here's an interesting thing. You have this dragon. Is this just a sculpture in the water? Is this an animatronic? That needs to be designed. Are there any rides? Can we see the design on those rides? So I pulled up some things earlier.
Yeah, you can get down
here.
Yeah, those.
Yeah. So this is a piece from this artist who I don't even know if she's still active in the industry, but I want you to note the render here. Very, very simple, mostly flats with just a single shadow pass flat on it. You don't need to over render this stuff.
Yeah, lines with basically a watercolor pass is the kind of look we're getting here. Perfectly acceptable.
It's very clear. You don't want to obscure anything. And there's merch design. These are really, really fun. I could see a part carrying this stuff. The shop design, restaurant designs. Here's another artist who created a Splatoon theme park design. So you have what the food truck would look like, you know, the themed truck, the different views, different features of it, different sign designs, what the store would look like. So all kinds of development, what it would be like to be there, right? Like you can get a sense of what it would feel like to be in this space.
This is what we're talking about from the very beginning of, if you're in your portfolio building stage, part of what you're doing is this. You are researching what does an effective portfolio look like for that thing. So in this case, if you're wanting to do theme park
look at this. This
design,
is great.
Which is a perfectly acceptable direction to try to go, then what is an effective one? This is a higher level of the same thing that you're trying to do. What can you learn from it?
I don't have another one. Oh, here. Yep. So this is an actual portfolio from a theme park designer. And I just want to show you some of the things she's done here. She has pages and pages of work. Where is it? This is not the right page. Am I on the wrong page?
I don't know.
No, I didn't want to see the SpongeBob work. I wanted to see her other Incredibles work. Yeah. So this was for Tokyo Disneyland. So again, I'm not saying 3D would solve all your problems, but the reason they do these 3D mock-ups is because you can get a real sense of what it would realistically look like.
Yeah, remember that they have to put all this stuff in front of investors and CEOs and the rest, and they have to sell them on the idea of what this is going to look like and that they should fund this.
Yeah, here's the entrance to the ride. What is that going to look like? How is that going to be designed? Very specific about the materials, the plants, the scale, how it's going to be interacted with. Look at this. This is great. Just a variety of signs, all very different. They're not similar. A lot of graphic design, all this stuff, very cool mock-ups for people to see. And then another thing I liked here was, just the ride design. Like you have some rides that you show in your map here, but none of them are explored or designed, right? So I feel like that is a way that you could actually expand this if you're really serious. Like if you're really serious about pursuing theme park design. In this one, you have it as a TTRPG theme park, which I think is a cool idea. I think it's been attempted kind of in the past with Evermore, for those of you that know what that's about. But I think it's closed now, Evermore Park. But anyway, here's what I'm going to suggest. If you really want to do theme park design, then you have to be really serious about it and go all out. Show them the 3D mock-ups, show them how it could look, design the buildings, the ticket booths, the restaurants, the merch store, some of the merch. And I would advise you to use, as we've seen, there's many portfolios on ArtStation that you can go look at, and they use existing IPs for the theme park. So here, I'm just going to give you some ideas if you feel like using any of these or anybody watching does. SpongeBob SquarePants World.
Yeah.
I'm sure eventually it's going to happen, right? So you might as well show, your potential employers what that could look like. How about a SpongeBob water park? What would that look like? You know, can you design that? Or a World of Warcraft land, or a D&D land. What would specifically that look like, right? Would you have like different worlds for the different areas for different worlds in D&D?
Or could you get a classic location like Baldur's Gate? Would there be a Baldur's Gate area? Would there be the dungeon ride that you could go on? Could you go through the Ravenloft Manor and you see Soren, you know, up there? Those are all good, and we do recommend like using some IP that people are familiar with, because it helps us as a viewer, one, connect with it and understand whether you're actually doing it good or not based on the IP. But it also shows a potential employer that you know how to get an IP and adapt it to this venue, which is what you would be hired to do. Now, these, which are more for a haunted house, and I do like the idea here.
Like a Western haunted house.
If you want to get into theme park designs, be open to how that portfolio and those skills would overlap with other things. A haunted house is a beautiful overlap of applying much of the same skill. So that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, haunted house, a water park, a merch store, a theme park, all these things, if you do it well, if you have a whole portfolio of this stuff, that also lends itself really well to video game environment design. There's a lot of crossover. So this is what I'm saying about kind of picking what you want to focus your attention on. If you stay in this area, you can actually get work either in theme parks or in environments for games, for movies, for shows. If you want to stick with concept art or illustration, I would really recommend like being sure about what your target clients are and go look at their artists and compare your work to theirs, your portfolio to theirs, because that's literally who you're competing against.
Then the last thing you want to do is, once you make that decision, get rid of everything that's not that. If you want to do theme park, remove the concept art, remove the illustrations, remove the dragons, the rest. I'm going to just tell you, and maybe I have a different opinion, but I'm going to just tell you that I think the likely opinion is, if a potential employer looked through your portfolio, a lot of this comes across as a bit immature. It just does. It looks kiddish. But not kiddish like you're trying to make something for kids. It just looks like you have kind of kiddish interests in what you like to draw and how you like to draw it. Kind of a mild, celebrity crush. Also,
there's nothing wrong with having a crush, but it's odd to feature it on your professional portfolio, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, we don't want to dwell too much on that. I just wanted to point it out.
But keep your portfolio streamlined to that thing that you're trying to solve for your clients.
And this is not specific to Ellie, okay? We mention this because it is a thing that comes up in portfolios, and it does get noticed. And when, you know, if you're competing against someone for a job and the other person is strong and professional, like strong in their work, and has a professional look and a mature look, because what does maturity say? Like, what is the underlying aspect of that? Is you're reliable, you're mature, you're seasoned, you're reliable, you have a grown-up attitude towards things, you can be trusted. And people who are more, you know, immature or come across as inexperienced, they don't, you know, you don't have a tendency to trust them as much with projects, they come across as less reliable. So, you know, you can feel that this is fair or unfair to make this assessment, but try to put yourself in the position of someone who's hiring, who has a job to hire for, and they can't mess up. They have to pick the right person, or it'll cost their company and their project a lot of money and a lot of delays. And look at it from their perspective and say to yourself, how would a total stranger who doesn't know me and who is a professional recruiter, you know, for a big company, how would they perceive me or how would they perceive my work or perceive me based on my work, right? So it's important for us to do these kind of self-assessments every now and then.
Yep. Now these are some of the more, what we'd call higher utility elements
I really
in your
like
portfolio. These have, again, when we're talking about the industry wants to hire people who can solve problems. And the more difficult and the more complex the problem that you can solve, generally the more that they'll pay you. These are nice solves.
I especially like, go back here, I want to point something out. I especially like what you did here where you provide an extra second read of context. You have the door, you have a little arrow and a sign that says T-Rex, and then we see a little bit of the T-Rex.
Yeah, that's nice.
I love that. That's great.
So I like this. I like this. I feel like this is something that a lot of people can't or won't do, and that has value, and that you have the possibility to lean into that, and that can be a nice direction for you. So I like this like crime scene thing. We got a lot of the right visual tales, the broken glass, even the shutters,
the trench coat, the hat.
We got all the papers on the ground, the gun. Like, it's a whole crime scene just laid out for us. That's good. This is good. This one's a little rougher. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if it's a themed room or in a game or what. That one's a little unclear. This is going to, this is what we're talking about. The right line.
Like the merch store, yes.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're making your own grids, but this is pretty cool. I can definitely see where this is helping you draw the...
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it is good. A different view of the same thing.
Very cool.
That's solid. Yep.
Yeah, I don't understand if this is underwater or what's happened here. Is this a sunken ship? Maybe that's what it's...
I don't know. It's like the wall is broken there and we're seen out. I'm not sure. More developed versions of these with some flat colors or basically cell shading, simple cell shade pass. That would be nice to see.
You've obviously got skills.
Yeah.
Okay, we are not saying that you don't. It's just a focus, streamlining, and then really leaning into whatever your goal is.
These are probably too rough. Unless you develop these more, I would take them out. These generally just sketches and studies can be removed from a portfolio. It's assumed that any artist has, pages of this sort of thing, of studies. It's the rooms like these that are up a notch that tell a client, oh, this is something, good for you that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got to keep going. We're already going late.
Anyway, we appreciate you sharing your work with us.
Next up is Killian. Killian says, I'm building a sci-fi themed portfolio. I believe I struggle with material and line art, and I think it takes my design down a level.
So you're building a sci-fi portfolio. It's unclear to us what your goal is, if it's publishing or video games. You just said sci-fi, so we're not really sure. It's at a glance, it's almost entirely characters, right? Mm-hmm. It's all character-based. So I'm guessing character design. I'm not sure.
Did you say specific concept art illustration?
Yeah, those are two different things.
In a art school, building up my portfolio.
Okay, so Killian is in art school currently.
Okay, got a set of props. Okay, some trees, gun, some glasses. Okay. Looking across these, and we can get the gist of it looking across the thumbnails, is that you're missing foundational skills. You really, really need to pause on trying to do character designs and study the basics. I'm saying that because we're getting multiple errors on multiple elements of the character, from anatomy to proportions to shading, form rendering, and all of those have to be solid before you can start design. And then you can start designing. And same thing even with props. So these are just rough. They feel like a quick pass. Nothing's really been given the amount of time in two ways. A result is always the combination of general study and specific work on that piece plus references. So there's three main components: your general studies, which is like how much time have you spent studying the fundamentals that applies to everything. How much time did you spend on this piece, and what was the value and quantity of the references that you use to help create that piece. If any of those is lacking, you're going to have a reduced ceiling of how good that piece or concept could be. So for these don't have enough basis behind it. And when you're at this level, the best thing that you can do is do lots of observational studies. Just really grounding yourself in how does the real world look? How do you turn an object? How do you shade an object? How do you draw an accurate face? And you've got to start with, how do I do it correct, so that you can then do something adapted from that. What you're doing right now is you're making adaptations of reality that are not founded on something correct. So we're working in errors into it. Foundations would be, we got to start with form drawing. How do you draw things volumetrically, proportionally accurate? How do you get the right depth? How do you think three-dimensionally? We've got courses on this. I'm not trying to sell you the course. There's other places to learn it. If you want to go elsewhere,
and to be honest, Killian, they should be teaching you this in art school. If they are not teaching you this in art school, there's a problem here. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do to quit school or whatever, but if you're paying good money to go to this school, they should be teaching you the foundational stuff. If they're not, there's something wrong. So that said,
like, you really need to be studying this. This is going to be the best use. This is something Diana just did for her studies the other day.
I do studies like this still regularly. The human body is a complex thing. The face is complex. And so, more study is always good. This is a page of studies, not even a lot. I have more. Yeah. Same thing with the male subject. Clint's got some tree studies. These are some of yours.
Yeah, you had a little tree drawing on your other page. So I've got these in here. I'm just saying that if you want to be a concept artist, and sometimes we talk to people that want to be a concept artist, and all I want to tell you is it's a very competitive job, and the people that make it in are really serious, and they've been serious for a long time about it. I'm just saying, like...
Ben Evelyn's here. I did not see that. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
I've been meaning to email you to set up a hangout. I'm sorry I haven't yet. We've just been playing catch up with work. Yeah. But we want to talk to you.
So if you're not getting trained to do this stuff, to do basic anatomy, proportions, form drawing, perspective, shading, I would seriously consider continuing at any art place that is not teaching you that stuff.
Just want to say something else too. This is a really common thing. We've just had this, and I'm sure Ben can confirm in the chat. We've had many students come to us, like more than I can even number now. I don't remember the exact number. It's been a lot. and they come to us after coming out of their college program, whether it's immediately after or they've been out for many years, and they didn't get taught any of this in college.
Yeah.
And that's really bad. They sunk years, 2 to 5 years in some cases, lots of money, tens of thousands, and they come out and they don't know the basics, and then they have to take online classes to try and fill those gaps. What I would say is, be careful with that. If I knew, I don't want to tell people what to do, but if I knew then what I know now, when I went to college, I would have just dropped out immediately. I wouldn't have even gone, and I would have spent half as much money or a third or a quarter of the cost on just online classes and learning fundamentals,
No. I'll tell you this, and this goes to you, and it goes to anyone else in a similar boat, right? And that is, if you're wanting to stay where you are, maybe you're getting some value out of it, maybe you have a full ride scholarship, and you're like, man, I just can't make myself quit. I've got a scholarship.
Or your parents won't let you quit.
Whatever the scenario is, you make it your responsibility to learn what you need to learn. You don't put that on your teachers, okay? You need to learn this. Now, if they're not teaching that, you teach yourself. You figure out where you can go learn.
I don't want to say drop out and learn, but maybe you should. Honestly, like if your teacher can't teach you, what are they there for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a real problem with college, can you tell? I just don't like people sink 20,000, 50,000, and they come out and they can't do the basics, and it just makes me upset because they're being taken advantage of. It's wrong.
I do a lot of fantasy stuff. I do a lot of make-believe stuff for work, but I started with things like this, pencil drawing when I was 15, right? I really learned how to draw accurately from real-life subjects, understood how to pose things, how to do value control, how to get texture, how light and shadow work, right? This sort of thing. I wasn't even 20. I think I was 18, right, doing graphite. I think my brother has this at his house. Did 1,000 portraits between like ages 15 and 20, right? Just because I wanted to get better. I knew portraits were really important. Getting faces are really important. So you've got to make it that kind of goal for you, because you're competing against other people kind of like this, like where I was.
And
like,
now we're just talking more generally and not specifically towards Killian, because Killian's situation is really common.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault. It's not your fault, Killian. So don't act like we're blaming you necessarily. It is your responsibility to judge the quality of the education you're getting.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if maybe your parents are putting pressure on you. A lot of people have this problem where the parents just want a piece of paper. They think, oh, degree equals job. And in this field, it just doesn't work that way. It's not true.
So this goes to you, and it goes a bit to the next person as well. And that is what the level of effort and the level of results that is required to pass a class and to get an acceptable grade from a teacher is not equivalent to what the industry requires to work in the industry. All right. If you're working hard enough to get a pass, that doesn't indicate that you're good enough to work in the industry. And we have a lot of people who hit a wall right out of art school.
I did.
And they're contacting us. I can't find any work. I thought I was going to be ready. I thought they were going to teach me. Right now, I'm looking at this and I'm questioning, I don't think you're going to be ready.
It's a hard pill to swallow after you've invested all that time and money and energy, and then you're told you still need to study more, right? Nobody wants to hear that. And when I got out of school, same thing. I had a portfolio from college. No way was I ready. And yeah, I didn't get any work in a creative field for 2 years after college because I was not there. And I had to do a lot of work on my own to do that. And then I took a mentorship with Pete on my own, had to pay more money and invest more time. And that's just an unfortunate reality for a lot of people. Yeah. I graduated with honors. That doesn't matter. 4.0 average doesn't matter. The industry was not having it because my artwork wasn't there.
Well, this is the rule of thumb, guys. Is your teacher a working professional, or could they work in the field? Have they worked in the industry? Are they good enough that they could do this? If somebody isn't capable and hasn't proven that they are able to do it themselves, how are they going to teach you to do it? That applies to anything. I would not go to any piano teacher who could not play the piece that they're trying to teach me. That would be ridiculous.
That would be concerning. Yeah.
Right? I would not go to a swim instructor who couldn't swim. It doesn't make any sense. Your responsibility as the students, any students out there, is that you need to vet your own teachers as to the quality, because the schools sometimes they need somebody, and they don't always get.
They just need a warm body.
Yeah, they need somebody to fill the position, and they're not always qualified.
I don't want to toot our own horn too hard here, but I do want to say this, that reality is part of the reason why when we created the Academy, our philosophy was we're never going to do that. We're never going to bring on people that don't know what they're doing, that aren't properly vetted. We're never going to have filler. We're never going to, lie to people and not teach them what they need to know. And by the way, on that note, we are going to be expanding the Academy in the next year. We're making new content, new classes for you guys right now that I think you're going to enjoy. And we're also working with a couple of new instructors that are going to teach things that we don't specialize in, but they do, to bring you, more value, more real education. So hopefully we can counter some of what's going on out there. Yeah, so Killian, take a good look at your teachers, your school program, and, make the call of what you need to do. And, start from foundation skills. That's going to open so many more possibilities for you to do what you want to do.
Okay, the last one we're going to be taking a look at is Emily. Emily, you kind of go in a different direction than we're really qualified to talk about. We'll give you some notes. You want to create a fun fantasy style portfolio with some action in it. It's a little vague. So this is an animation portfolio. Yeah. Mostly is what I'm getting from it. No, neither of us really have an animation background. We know some through osmosis. I took a few classes in college for animation, but I didn't specialize. The same principles apply here, which is know which target you're going for, which studios, which sort of films. Are we doing Disney style? Are we doing like Nickelodeon? Are we doing Titmouse? Is it grungy sort of animation style? Is it clean like anime action? And then you've got to push it, and you've got to look at other portfolios of the people who are getting hired to do that. So we can play a little thing here. Turn the sound off. So here, got little animation. Got some little guys here. Okay, well, I don't think we're going to watch the whole thing. This girl's taking a lot of abuse for some reason. Yeah, these little animals just really do not like this girl. Got a demon fish now. I don't know. This is a lot. Okay. Then we got some other similar stuff down here. Little characters. This is, I don't know what you call necessarily this. It's almost like each limb is like a cutout, and you're just like, it reminds me of old Flash animation where you're doing that. I don't know the name for it. We're not that knowledgeable about this, to be honest. We're just going to give you our impressions as professionals working in a different field, right? A different area. It's got some run animations. So the top line here is that the animations are pretty basic, right? That's the straight of it. We've got a run cycle. This is the sort of thing that even without any animation background, I could probably sit down and draw an animation cycle of somebody running, just because I know how to draw people. You've got to really 10 times the effort and the complexity of what you're doing to stand out and to have any chance. We went to Lightbox in October and we saw a lot of animation portfolios. And all I'm saying is that there's a lot of talented animators out there that are struggling to find work because there's so many talented people in that field. And if you want to have a chance, you've got to kill it. Kill it.
Yeah, we watched all these earlier, and there's nothing wrong with what you've done here. But it does look like student work. You know, it looks like the work I did in my college classes, like, you know, the mouth animation with a pre-rigged character. I did an assignment like that. It took me, you know, a few days to do. And similarly, you know, there's animations here that are at a degree that a lot of people could probably do in Photoshop without too much knowledge of animation. So this is not me taking away from what you're doing. I'm just trying to show you that it needs to be a little more complex than this to be competitive for work. We have some portfolios,
the last two.
This one right here. So this person was doing some kind of personal project animations before he got hired on, was it Valorant and a few other things, Star Wars?
Yeah. So when you're looking for good benchmarks, obviously it's nice to look at what people are getting paid to do. All right, cool. But then also look at what were the projects they were doing right before they got hired, because those are the things the clients looked at and approved to hire them. So here, like, this is the last thing that they did before they got hired. And this is just a personal little animation that they're just trying out how to do Spider-Man. Wonderful. Great sense of action.
We're not saying you have to do Spider-Man, okay? Right. But it's just, this is what they chose to do. And what we're getting at is it's more complex and more involved than a walk cycle, right? This is beyond a walk cycle.
Like we said, the more that you can show that you can deliver and solve difficult and complex things, the more hireable you become. That is a really good movement, a complex movement. There's secondary movement with the fabric and with the hair and the other bodies, like, you know, crossing in front of it and the sense of motion. And that's hard to do to the level that he's doing it. So that's a really, I mean, I understand why the guy got hired, right? So we've got an avatar, OC animation, right? This is just his own thing here. Again, you can pick different subjects. You can work in a different animation style. That's fine. But whatever style it is, it's got to be to a really high level of that style.
Yeah, we're not saying do this, but this is just to get an idea of the level of complexity that other people are doing out there before they get hired.
And then looking at what they are actually getting hired to do. So there is some work out there. They got hired to do this thing for Valorant. And this is whole 3 minutes long. I'll just look at it like this. Look at this. Beautiful animation. Good movement. Three-dimensional. Cool characters.
Different shots.
Yeah. Just even the smoke movement there is fantastic. I really like that. How it pulls off the character as he's moving. That's beautiful. Here's this person. I don't know.
Thibault Leclerc. I think that's how you say it.
So this is his demo reel. I think it was from school, generally.
Yeah, it's 2018, even though it was just posted here 2 years ago. So this is 8 years old.
And he started getting work shortly after his demo reel. So what was it? What did his reel look like? Look at the complexity of this. Oh, it's very
A
stylized.
lot of personality.
Yeah.
Got some motion, impact.
And there are these switches, totally different look. Now we've got a little snow monkey here walking around. The camera's tracking to it. The wind is blowing. Very believable, lifelike motion to it.
Beautiful.
Totally different animation style here. Totally different look. But the fact is, I would think that if you know how to animate things, you could adapt it to different.
Well, in his
kind
case,
of
he
style.
could.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that you have to do that.
Look at this.
Oh my gosh, these hands. That's crazy. I have a hard time just drawing hands in a still position, and this person is just animating them beautifully.
So, this, in a very real way, is your competition. And if you want to do 2D animation, this is the sort of person you're going against. That would, all that is to say, I think you have to push the complexity of what you're doing to be able to stand out against people like that. Yeah.
And one of the big mistakes, and I made this mistake in school, and a lot of people make this mistake, is, and this is referenced in Victor Adame's blog too, is that we compare ourselves to our other classmates. We don't compare ourselves to the industry. And that was one big, huge error I made 10 years ago when I was trying to get into magic, where I didn't compare myself to any of the magic artists, really. I didn't compare myself to Tyler Jacobson. I didn't compare myself to Jesper Ejing. I was comparing myself to my classmates, and I thought, well, I'm closer to magic than they are, right? And like my peers, at that point I was already out of college, but I was comparing myself to my peers, to people in the community, other artists I knew, and I thought, well, I'm closer to magic than they are. Their magic isn't going to hold me to the same standard as Tyler Jacobson, and that was a mistake. Like, yeah, when you say, I want to do magic, you're literally throwing your hat in the ring to compete against Tyler Jacobson for a brief, or to compete against Jesper, or one of these people that regularly get cards. Like, you are saying, I want to get an assignment that this person could get. So we have to take that seriously and address that. And they're not gods, okay? Like, our competitors, they're just other people like you and me. They're just really serious about what we're doing, or what they're doing. And if we are as serious as they are, we can compete.
Yeah.
Like, why not? You see what I'm saying? It's not like it's an impossible task. We just have to meet the challenge really head on and not be avoidant. Yeah.
Yeah, so like a lot of these, it's very much just the character. The camera is very static. You see on a lot of the other ones, they figure out how the camera moves across the scene. They're tracking with the character. The character is going in and out. There's more like Z depth, something coming towards camera, away from camera. Or the motion is just more natural. It's more fluid in how it moves around.
Probably more frames.
Yeah. And
I
so
would imagine.
all of those things just help to elevate the portfolio. Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we've got for today. That's all the portfolios. Chat, is there anything that you guys want to ask or talk about? Any questions before we wrap up for the evening? I don't know if I missed anything in the chat. I can't read it that small. Oh, wait. Is there a book or video that offers more explanations for this?
On what?
Hang on. Let me go back a little bit.
I'm a noob. Hi, I'm a noob with colors. Beside portrait, where should I start to look out for in terms of color variations, or like those hue shifts you add on top of your local layer to be more specific? And how can you see them when light is added on top? Some art looks dead or plain because there's no color varieties. And sometimes I can't see it as a charcoal artist. Well, a good place, to start looking for hue variation is in what you have in with skin, and the skin tone maps and the zones of the colors.
Yeah, like Sargent portraits have it a lot.
Yeah. But as far as just seeing other color variations, I know that I got better at it when I was working with soft pastels, because each pastel was a different specific color, and
You had to be intentionally
you had to be
layering it.
intentionally grabbing multiple colors. And I would say doing a practice where you can't use the base color. So if like you can't, if the thing is a flat, normal color, go, well, I'm not going to paint it just brown. I have to make the brown with other colors by composite. So you can never use just, and that's what you have with pastels. Like generally you create the color by combining other colors, rather than just you have the perfect color and you put it down.
In digital, normally what we do is you just grab adjacent hues, right, to shift slightly, to either side of the base color that you have. So you can work that in, I'm not talking about faces, but just any area of like leathers or fabrics or whatever, metals is going, you can go in kind of two different directions. You can shift in the hue on the color wheel to the hue directly above or below, and you can go in the same color that you're in and go into more saturated or less saturated, right? And that way you can achieve those shifts and give some variation to the area without it looking messy or adding like a totally different color in there that is going to mess it up. Subtle shifts. Yeah.
So you can turn on color jitter with Photoshop if you want to just automatically build some in with your brush strokes. The other thing to keep in mind is adjusting the color depending on the plane direction. So we talked about like having the blue skylight influencing the shadow, but really playing that up, like intentionally trying to play that up where, those planes are much more blue, and the ones getting the bounce light from the ground, you make it much more warm.
Well, it's like that Forest ML piece, right, that we showed our people last time that had that orange light, and it was just orange on those planes, right, on the blue skin character.
And you're doing that in order to make something feel volumetric and make it feel influenced by the environment. So, but you have to be aware of what the environmental colors are that would affect it. I know, what's his name has done studies where you just get a photo and you make a round sphere.
Oh, we used to do that at Cine Studio.
That's white or light gray, and just add it to the scene as if it's physically in the scene, and map the lighting onto that sphere as if it was really there.
To make it look realistic.
Yeah. Add the light, the shadow at the right color, at the right contrast, with the right dark level, with the right bounce light. That's a really good study. We have that actually in the form.
That's right. I did do that.
Class.
Yeah, because we used to do that at Cine Studio, and we also do that in my form rendering class. I forgot about that. But we do that with several objects, not just the sphere, but several different things together and at different distances. So that's worth practicing for sure. Any other questions? The chat says, this was a really great session. Felt like the old days. Thank you. This was informative, educational. Oh, that's good. Good job.
That's good to hear him. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, or should we just wrap up? I know we have like a delay, so I'm waiting just to check the chat. But if not, we're going to get going for the evening. Have a little dinner or something.
Yeah, he's got a very unique style. He has an ability to really mash in multiple things and somehow still make it work.
I've always liked his work. I don't know, those pieces, his early pieces, they really just stayed in my mind.
I remember seeing some of these. I hadn't looked at his portfolio.
It's just
in quite
memorable.
A while.
You know, this stuff is just memorable to me. And I don't typically like that sort of stuff, but I don't know, I like what he does. Yeah.
It's pretty dynamic.
Yes.
Well, I'm not seeing any more comments, but we thank you guys for hanging out with us. We hope that you got something from it. Maybe we challenged you some, or gave you some ideas of maybe how to adjust your goal, or I don't know, improve your pieces. And yeah, we'll have more reviews coming up, and it's free to submit. You can just go to swatchesacademy.com, and those portfolio reviews on the top banner, you just click on that.
There's a lot more in there, so we're working our way
Yeah.
through them. So if you submitted and we haven't gotten to you yet, just know that there's a lot in there and we will get to you.
All right, guys. Till you catch you next time. Keep drawing.